View from the Gutters, episode 25. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On today's episode, we discuss Luthor, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 3441. Welcome to View from the Gutters, episode 25.2. Hooray! I'm Andrew Chard.
Podcasting.
What's happening? Why are you looking at me like that, Joe?
I'm Joe Preti.
I'm Tobiah Panshin.
And I'm Cade Reynolds.
Yay. And I'm Joe Preti. I think we've done that bit before.
Have.
God.
Like four times?
Probably. Every episode you do it, actually.
Ordered by telephonic communication to tell Joe that he's an ass by his girlfriend.
Because now, she can't get the student discount, which I just said out loud.
We're getting Man of Steel tickets because this is being recorded like way the fuck before you listen to it.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going on a trip.
I'm going to Japan. Come find me. I'll be gone by the time this episode comes out. I'll be back in the US.
He's going to bring me back stuff from Japan. The little pop-in kitchen things, because they're cool.
What? Oh, the ones that are like candies that you like make into
you
hamburgers
make yourself,
and stuff?
yes.
Yeah.
Because Kirby...
For some reason, I thought you were going to say he's going to bring me back a little Asian 12-year-old.
No, not a 12-year-old.
We can't say that
one
on
that
the
looks
air, but
like
yes,
a
I am bringing
12-year-old.
back that.
She's going to bring me back some... like Gengro girl.
Yeah.
That
Legally,
looks like a good luck troll.
Yeah.
And then I'll carry her with me and pat her head for good luck.
Yeah.
That was incredibly racially insensitive, and I apologize to any and all people that might be listening.
Yeah, I'm not bringing you back anything, probably. Those candy I'll definitely bring back.
Can you bring me back water from like a thing that'll turn me into a bear every time I get wet? You know.
Oh, I wish. I want some of that too. Yeah, if I find some, I'll bring you some.
You can be the girl and I'll be the bear.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I want to be a bear too.
So what did we read this week?
We read Ranma 1/2. No, that's what we were just talking about.
Wait, no, we read that every week.
We do.
That's
our,
a separate
our special time.
In our special alone time.
It's a different show.
We read Luthor. And I think when it came out, originally it came out as Luthor, Man of Steel.
Yes.
And I would like to say something because this bothers me. And I do it myself sometimes. His last name is not Luthor. It's Luthor.
Is it?
Yes.
It is.
It's Luthor.
Not like Martin Luther?
No, it's not Luthor. Luthor is Luther. His last name is spelled Luthor. He is Lex Luthor.
That's good. Well, that's how they say it in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Luthor.
And I, for one, this book makes me miss when Lexi had a full head of flaming red hair.
When does he have that in this?
His clone did. He didn't.
Well, yeah. No, because the 90s was like the best time in comics ever.
Yeah.
That's the secret truth that DC has realized, which is why they're making all their comics as if they were written in the 90s.
Actually, yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I really miss 90s comics, but go ahead.
I miss the batshit craziness of them, but this is something interesting. So DC is going, in part of their reboot to offend everybody, is going to bring back Dr. Light. And this is Dr. Light. This is Dr. Light number 1, who, if you've read Identity Crisis, spoilers for a book that's almost 10 years old.
10 years old now.
It is revealed that he raped Sue Dibney, among others, in a pretty magnificent fridging moment. But
yeah, which brings up the only continuity error in that book too.
Well,
there's like a really weird loophole in the continuity in that book that I did not realize the first 4 times I read it. Someone had to explain it to me.
I don't think I've ever noticed it.
Yeah.
But
we'll talk about that in another episode.
We'll save that for later.
Yeah.
Well, somebody should recommend Identity Crisis at some point so we can talk about it.
Yeah, okay. I think that's going to happen.
Are you going to do that one?
I might do that one. Yeah, I'll do that one.
My pick's kind of weak this week.
Anyways, they're going to reboot Dr. Light, and they're going to do it as
he's going to be like a respected family man,
and
beloved father, like a real winner.
That's weird.
So clearly, the message they're sending out here is that you can be a rapist, and that's okay.
Well, technically that never happened.
Yeah, well,
In this continuity, Dr. Light didn't
yeah,
rape anyone.
Isn't that always true of rape? It never happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I mean,
this actually didn't happen though.
but you see,
right? Because Identity Crisis never happened.
It didn't happen.
Have we even met Sue Dibney in this reboot? She may not even exist.
There's a bigger issue. The bigger issue going on here is that no. To him, it did not happen. But to the millions of people that read DC Comics, it did happen. And it sends a very clear message about what is okay and what you can be forgiven for and what you shouldn't talk about and can be moved on.
I kind of disagree with that sentiment.
You can.
I don't disagree that it's like there's something that they probably shouldn't have done. Like, shouldn't have retconned that, I guess. But that leads me to think that
It's very sketchy ground.
It's one of the 10 million things I think they should not have changed in the reboot.
And
you know?
really, that's the point.
Absolutely, yeah.
If the New 52 had been like absolutely perfect, it launched a new golden age of DC Comics, and everything was fucking great, and this is like one questionable action among something that was otherwise perfect and like unassailable, that would be one thing.
Right.
But as one more like shady fucking misogynistic move.
And
in
racist.
a mountain of fucking
It's
sketchy bullshit that DC has done in the last 2 years, it's really problematic.
I mean, I can
it
understand
really is.
them not wanting to tackle this issue in a new continuity and like,
but they didn't have to bring Dr. Light back.
Yeah, exactly.
He has not been in the comics until now.
Right.
They could have made a new character with that name, with those powers.
There's a female Dr. Light, right?
Right, like there's no reason that character had to be brought back
at all. Yeah,
and
at all.
It's not a very interesting character either.
No,
I think so. Like, there isn't really a good reason to bring him back.
And I think that it's specifically the it's this very insidious thing that happens in our industry that makes the war on women as played out in the comic book industry. It makes it harder for females to get involved because there's no representation. It makes it a much more hostile environment. And if you look at Catwoman and you look at Amanda Waller and Starfire and Barbara Gordon and all the, it's like, by and large, the way they're writing women and the way they're portraying women is not anything even it's 2013. All right, we were seeing this shit in the 90s. It's time to move past it.
Well,
let's get some character development.
It's like
going on
when
here.
you bring back shitty characters like Dr. Light, instead of bringing back interesting female characters that we all miss and are clamoring for, like Stephanie Brown or someone.
Wally West.
Yeah. There's just so many characters that we would rather have.
It's not even like they're bringing back, this guy's shitty. It's like they're literally whitewashing.
Yeah.
Like everything that the character, like his entire past, and they're trying to make him like this upstanding character.
Which is weird.
Yeah, it is.
It just seems like a bad decision all over.
This has only been previewed. The issues where this haven't actually come out yet, so maybe it's a fucking dodge. And DC is trying to trick us about something,
the other thing
and
is,
it's going to turn out to be really different in the actual issue. We don't know.
Maybe they set him up as this great family man, and then they're going to turn him into a rapist later. Like, maybe that's the story arc they're going for. It's still weird, though.
DC loves putting their women on ice.
Yeah, but
man.
honestly, like, I would agree with that as a possibility if DC had shown any capability to be clever or forward-thinking in their writing.
Which they haven't. Several years.
Every single time something like this happens in the last couple of years, you think to yourself, like, they couldn't possibly be doing that. There must be something more going on. And there isn't. It's exactly as stupid as it seems on the face of it.
Maybe I'm just really hopeful that things are going to get better, but I've
stop. Kind of given up hope on DC. I really have.
Stop doing that.
And I've stayed out of this conversation specifically because I've given up hope on DC.
Which really is the right answer. Like, just... If there's shitty comics, don't read them.
Yeah, and definitely don't buy them.
And this is kind of what we've said this before, but seriously, vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
You don't need that whole run, okay? You don't need every issue of Action Comics if Action Comics sucks. Yeah. All right? That's how they get you, and they know that they can get you. So just tone down. It's cool. Turn your fanboy meter from 10 down to 8 or 7. It's cool. You can read them online, man, but don't buy them because,
Well, don't support business practices that you don't agree with.
Absolutely.
That's why capitalism works, sort of, sometimes.
Yeah. So Luthor.
He's a capitalist. Segue.
Yes. Awesome. Brilliantly done.
That was
Yeah.
terrible. So
Joe,
initial
Joe,
reactions, Joe.
you recommended Luthor.
I did, and
why did you recommend it? What recommends it to itself
what
to
were
you?
you
I
thinking?
think I mostly recommended it because I wanted to talk about it, because while I enjoyed it, I don't know how I feel about it. I like Brian Azzarello. I love 100 Bullets. I'm eventually going to recommend it for our long run. And I think I like his take on Luthor too, but there's certain things that go on in this book that I'm kind of I don't know how to kind of get the thoughts out of my own head, and so I thought we could kind of sit down and hash it out. I think we do a good job about it, and kind of get it out there. I think the art's amazing, and I'm fascinated with the character of Luthor. I think he's a brilliant villain, but I don't necessarily know. I love him specifically as a Superman villain, because I think that when he's written correctly, he stands in perfect contrast to Superman, because you have Superman who will absolutely not cross a line, and Luthor that's like, what line? Don't care.
And I think that kind of leads into what my major problem with this is, because the way that Luthor is presented seems almost schizophrenic at times. I think that he's written as a villain first and foremost, and he does some ridiculously villainous things in this book because he's Lex Luthor.
Right. He's
a villain. That's what he is. That's what he'll always be. But then there's kind of this character beyond Lex Luthor, quotation marks, evil scientist guy, where he's presented as kind of this paragon of humanity, almost in a Batman-like way, where, he is the best at everything that he sets his mind to. And, he's kind of the human without limits. Like, he can push himself to any extreme.
Yeah.
And it's like he's almost a really interested, really conflicted character. And that portrayal of him is kind of ruined for me in a sense, because he's presented with these explicitly villainous traits. If he had been presented as conflicted about the more villainous actions that he takes, or that he has certain lines that he won't cross, and that's why he fails. Like, if he was presented as a genuinely, potentially heroic character who is driven by a very extreme belief that Superman is crippling humanity, he could be an incredibly interesting, not villain, but character.
I totally agree.
And I think the fact that he is portrayed as a villain first diminishes the character, and it leads to the schism between the two Lex Luthors that's really on offer in this book.
Yeah, because the thing that I've always found the most fascinating about Luthor, and they sort of touch on it in this book, is the thing that he's afraid of about Superman is that Superman will suddenly decide that he knows better than humanity and is going to pronounce himself the new emperor of humanity.
Which Superman has done frequently in many Elseworld stories.
And is a common theme of these super god type characters. Like, it's what happens with Miracle Man at the end of Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore's run on Miracle Man, is he essentially is like, look, I'm going to shape the world in my image because I can.
Yeah, it's the theme of the new DC game, Injustice, Gods Among Us.
Yeah.
Superman snaps and takes over the world.
Yeah, and so I think that Luthor has a very real fear, and that's justifiable. Like, look, he's there to keep Superman in check, but the way that he goes about doing it, as a villain first, is, I think, I agree with Toby, is what kind of is the downfall of him. And also, this story's told from his point of view, so seeing him as the infallible, I can do anything I set my mind to kind of thing, makes him seem really perverted in his own mind. He's convinced himself that he is so great.
Yeah.
Which I think is good writing, but I can't tell.
And that's
well Luthor's main sin has always been hubris.
Yeah.
Which is ironic for a character that's being portrayed as I'm the human, I'm the everyman, standing up against this godlike figure.
Right.
And I don't think that he ever really explicitly presents himself as better than Superman.
Right.
Although he is trying to overcome Superman. I mean, what is the actual like explicit definition of hubris. It's a lack of humility before the gods.
Yeah, it's pride that offends the gods. Is how I've always thought about it. And I think this is the interesting thing about me is I read this and I think I think about Luthor from All Star Superman, and I remember that there's a part where he's giving an interview to Clark Kent and he basically says, "I hate Superman because he didn't have to try for it. He just got it. And how can he possibly have any kind of character outside of that when he just has this?" And that can't like that. No, I've worked my ass off to have everything that I have to be the best possible, the best possible period. And it his existence offends me. And I look for that in this, and I don't know that I see it. I agree with you. He is schizophrenic. In the beginning, he's like, "Hey, janitor guy, oh, your boy is bright. I'm going to get him into this crazy cool school."
But even that's a fairly villainous action because he's kicking out someone that really should be there.
Right.
Out
Absolutely.
Of that school. So
part of my problem with DC Comics when I was a kid versus Marvel Comics is I felt like DC was very much a universe of black and white. You had heroes and villains. Yeah. And Marvel Comics was always a lot more about the grays. And I think that's the problem here is that Lex Luthor is a villain. He's black. He's evil. He's a bad guy. And any attempt to portray him in shades of gray is ultimately doomed to fail within the context of the DC universe because of that.
Yeah.
And you really need to overcome that and go, okay, well, let's look at a Luthor who does have heroic elements, but maybe is doomed to failure because of X, Y, or Z. That he has human failings which trip him up because he's too blind by his hatred or jealousy of Superman or whatever, to really transcend his base human whatever.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like that because it's from Luthor's viewpoint and we're seeing a lot from Luthor's eyes, that they wanted you to kind of see how he does in that Superman is the villain. However, Superman in this book was not written like the villain. He's still written like the guy who is good because he is good, and I feel that actually detracted from the Luthor storyline.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I also felt like the Hope superhero was really tacked into this story. Like we didn't need that part at all.
Yeah,
and especially when he sleeps with her and then like blows her up with the self-destruct button. I was like, what is the purpose of all? Like, it doesn't.
There's a trend, like certain writers will create like this really shitty situation, and then they'll show the character like being brave in the face of the situation, or like, look how horrible this is, and it's like, well, no, that didn't just fucking happen. You wrote that, like you made that happen. You, the writer, like you don't get to like your character look brave because they overcome or whatever. Like you fucking set that up.
Yeah, and I don't think that it helped. I don't think anybody benefited from that Hope situation. Like, I felt like it was kind of confusing and tacked on and unclear as to his motivation with why he was doing it. I mean, I get it. He was trying to get Superman to blow up his new tower. But did he really need Hope and the Toyman to do that? Like, couldn't he have just manipulated Toyman into, like, being on the build? Like, it just seemed like there was a better way to do that, and, like, I don't understand why Hope was there. They created a female character just to, like, have Lex sleep with her and then scorn his secretary about the fact that she wants to sleep with him.
Well,
and
I think that they wanted to try and make him like more complicated or conflicted as a character because it's like, oh, well, he loves this woman, but he's totally willing to sacrifice him to get his own ends.
Does he really love her though? Like we're seeing it from inside his head.
Well,
like,
no,
he's just
my take
her.
on that is like, it's actually fairly creepy for me because when it's a fairly masturbatory act.
Yeah.
By sleeping with Hope, he's sleeping with himself as the only person that can actually ever fulfill him in any kind of way.
He created her, right? I mean, is that what I was getting?
Yeah.
Like he just grew this superhuman person?
I
like,
mean, it's creepy in more ways than one.
And also, like, why? Like, if he can do that, why didn't he grow a bunch of them? And like, everything about it felt really weird to me.
It's like it's a story that in so many ways like dipped its toe into the pool but wasn't willing to jump in and follow through with its own concepts.
And it's so short.
Exactly. I felt that while I did like this book, it had too much wrong with it. It was trying to go too many places for how short it was.
Yeah.
I feel that if this was just the beginning of a long process in which it turns out to be a Superman book instead of a Luthor book, that this is a great book as far as the origin of a supervillain. But I don't feel that it really worked how they intended it to.
Well,
it's really funny too, because they do kind of something similar in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, where Lex Luthor basically spends an entire season or two winding Superman and the Justice League up. And at one point he even sets up a fight between Superman and Captain Marvel where they end up destroying the city that Lex Luthor has built.
So yeah, the housing project.
And basically just for over a year or two, he's just winding up the Justice League, making them crazier and crazier, trying to make them take more extreme actions to try and stop villains, making people more afraid of them, until he's ultimately going to discredit them and use this to seize ultimate power. And it's done really well. It's this really slow build up. You don't really realize that it's happening until it's far too late to stop. The second season finale of Justice League Unlimited, it's this 4-part thing that's incredibly well done. Yeah. And I think covers a lot of the same concepts that we see here in Luthor, done a lot better.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of having a lot of time and a good creative team to help you see it through, because this to me smacks of a lack of editorial oversight. There's too much going on, and a good editor.
There's no commanding vision.
Justice League also had Dwayne McDuffie too. So
well, sure. I mean, that was a
credit where
fantastic
credit
team.
was.
I think that's the best
absolutely.
superhero cartoon show that they've ever made.
I definitely.
It's not the best. It's close.
Yeah, it's really good. And having the original Justice League series lead into it helped that show so much, and having Batman and the Superman show essentially lead into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just an uninterrupted chain from Batman the Animated Series all the way up through the end of Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, it's such a strong creative oversight and stuff. And this book to me smacks of no editor ever came in and read the script and was like, do you think that you might have too much going on in this book?
Well, I feel
there's no singularity, singular direction.
Yeah, there's no core to the narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if this follows Azzarello and Libermejo writing Joker, which I haven't read, and I've heard
so different than this.
I've heard it's good. I did not like. Brian Azzarello wrote Broken City, and I think he did it with Edward Rizzo, who's his penciler or his artist on 100 Bullets.
Yeah,
and I did not care for it. But I read this, and I kind of want to read Joker as well.
Joker, I don't want to spoil Joker for anybody, but Joker's a lot different because it kind of feels like the very Nolan Batman, where it's set in a world that could actually kind of exist. Mm-hmm. And also it's told from the point of view of Joker's henchmen and not Joker. And that makes a huge difference in the storytelling.
That's kind of where, I think that's where I'm kind of going at with this, is there's a literary device, the unreliable narrator, right? You can't, you have to question what you're being told because the person narrating it either has some kind of stake in it or, is misremembering or whatever. And I wonder, or is crazy, absolutely.
Yeah. Has an agenda of some kind.
Yeah, there's something going on there that's not on the level.
There's a couple good examples of this. Killer Inside Me.
Oh God,
is a very good unreliable narrator. And there's also a couple mystery writers that are written from the perspective of the murderer, but they never tell you that they're a possible suspect. And
right,
it's just,
exactly.
Aggravating.
The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great example.
Yeah.
And I wonder, the unreliable narrator is, I think, tricky in a graphic medium because, not necessarily in a movie because there's ways you can get around it, but in a comic book, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do it in a way that kind of conveys what's going on. And so I find myself wondering what... I don't ever really get the feeling. I feel for what's in Luthor's head, so I don't even get as far as the schizophrenic feel of him because I never really connect with him. I feel like it's a fairly standard I'm gonna do the thing and everybody's gonna believe me after that, and yay! But then I'm like, this is Lex Luthor, I don't ever expect to read a Lex Luthor story that's not what's in it for him? Whether it be striking down Superman or somehow getting a leg up on people that are going to stand in the way of what he wants, because there's Lex and there's what he wants, and that's the only thing that's important to him, and the only thing he sees in between that is obstacles.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you're right. I feel like there needs to be more there. At no point is any one detail ever fleshed out, and at some points it's downright confusing as to what's going on.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about like tacked on parts, like not only the Hope tacked on, but Bruce Wayne tacked on.
Yeah, that whole sequence I found very confusing.
So it's not just me, because I'm incredibly confused by what's going on there.
Well, it's pretty out of continuity, because for me, it feels like a very odd continuity, because at the beginning of the story, the secretary says that he's been around since I was a little girl, which I can assume is like, I don't know, 8 or 10 years at least, probably. And then later in the story, when he meets with Bruce, it's like he gives Bruce kryptonite for the first time, as if he's like never met or fought Superman before. Yeah. And then they have a really awkward fight over the kryptonite for like for an unknown reason.
Yeah, and why is he giving Bruce Wayne kryptonite? Like, he doesn't know that Bruce Wayne's Batman, presumably.
He hints at that. When he sees Alfred, he's like, well, Mr. Wayne is who he is. You know, like he hints that he already knows, which is another really weird fact, because if he knows...
It's like, why does he... Like, he gives Batman the kryptonite,
yeah,
and then Superman comes and takes it away. It's like, what is the point of that sequence?
Not only does he, because he crushes it in his hand, and it's fucking kryptonite, which would not work well
fake, I guess,
I think there was something else going on there. But like, then Bruce calls Lex and says, I'll give you what you want. Which
gives him his dad's research to help him finish the Hope Project.
Right, okay.
Because he went to Mr. Wayne because he needed like more tech, assumably. And it also, all the text that's happening over the top of that fight between Superman and Batman is the like, we can't trust Superman, we don't know when he's going to come and try to take over the world, you know, we have to have someone who can keep him in check, which I assume is him talking about Luthor, but I also assume that like Bruce is realizing that at the same time, like that's what's supposed to be happening. That's a weird time in continuity for Bruce to suddenly go, I'm worried about Superman.
Yeah.
Also, it takes away the meeting, the like really great World's Finest meeting where Superman gives Bruce a kryptonite ring because he's like, look, I trust you, and if anything ever goes wrong, like you're the only one I trust to take me down. Like that's a huge moment in the Batman Superman.
And we do also know that this is post Justice League forming, because they flat out mention it in the interviews with Hope. Are you going to join the Justice League?
Really bizarre.
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's a few questions.
It just a lot of stuff feels tacked on.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I would love to see a story or a series where they basically say like, it is explicitly inevitable that Superman will eventually decide that he needs to take over the world, like 50 years in the future. Mm-hmm. Like they know that this is going to happen and it cannot be avoided, and set up a situation where basically Superman like knows that eventually he's going to decide to take over the world, but he doesn't know how or why.
Yeah.
And so he himself is struggling against this and setting up things against himself and making plans with Bruce Wayne and like letting Luthor do his thing because he knows eventually he's going to have to be taken down. Like I think there's a lot of interesting story ideas with something like that.
I also think there's a lot of interesting things. There's a lot of interesting Elseworlds where Superman takes himself out of the game, and it's almost as if he knows that that's going to happen. Like All-Star Superman flies into the sun because he knows he's going to die. But in Whatever Happened in the Man of Tomorrow, that Alan Moore story where he like gives up his powers because he essentially like wants to live as a human being, you know.
Well,
like
it's not even that he wants to live as a human being, but he knows that there's going to be a continual escalation of threats as long as he's around.
So I feel like that's kind of in that vein, and I also feel like in Kingdom Come when he just like moves to his fortress forever and retires. Like these are all kind of because he knows that there's going to be a moment where he just snaps and is like, look, no more villains, no more whatever, no more of this, martial law, Superman law. I'm going to rule everything.
Yeah,
like,
which,
I think,
again, is something that they did in Justice League Unlimited very well.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally. And I think it's been done in Superman Red Sun a little bit, too.
Superman Red Sun, which not only did they do it incredibly well, but has one of my favorite endings ever.
Yeah.
That actually is a really good ending.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite Elseworlds for sure.
Absolutely.
It's so strong.
All right, so we've
what do you guys think about Luthor? Like as far as kind of, broad overall, Rex? Or
I did want to say, as much as we've picked apart this book, in my opinion, it was good. I liked it in that the art was amazing. It was well written, not on a broad scope, but more on a single issue scope. When this was coming out at the time, and I was grabbing issues off the shelf, the writing was, enough to keep me coming back. I did want to find out what happens next. Now, after the whole thing was done, it left me with a sick feeling in my stomach. Not necessarily because it was bad, but just because it wasn't what I really wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was good, and I did like it.
Yeah.
I do like the art at some points, but I do feel like consistency throughout all the issues. Like sometimes it really falls flat for me.
I felt like the coloring detracted from the line work.
There's a scene where Luthor is naked and he looks metallic. Like he looks like a robot because of the way the highlighting is happening, and it's like
happened
really
several times.
odd.
It happened several times with Superman's shield and
there's just something going on, and I can't really tell what it is about it that I don't like. But normally I'm a big Bermejo fan. Maybe it's the glossy pages because
there is a glossiness to it.
Joker's printed on matte pages, and it works a lot better. And so is some of the other stuff I've seen Bermejo do. I think is traditionally more on the matte, non-gloss pages. Yeah.
Honestly,
the paper pages.
I wouldn't recommend Luthor. Like I think if you're a really big Superman or Lex Luthor fan, you're going to feel frustrated and disappointed with it. Yeah. And if you're not going to get anything out of it.
I kind of agree.
I feel like this falls in an unfortunate circumstance of not really being for anyone.
Yeah.
Like, there's no group of people or subset of people that I would really, you should check this out. Like,
I think that
it really left me feeling flat.
Yeah, it did for me too. But I think that if you're a big Superman fan and you've just read everything, I mean, obviously you could read this. But I also kind of feel like it's a good thing to learn from. To, like, read this story as something to kind of like take away. There's some things not to do in comic books.
I think if you're an aspiring comic book writer, read this and learn from it, and don't do this.
I agree, because I think that there's better ways to kind of humanize and villainize a super villain at the same time, and I think other people have done it better. I think there's a better treatment of Luthor in Birthright, which is one of my favorite Superman comics. I think that in All-Star Superman, he's much more interesting. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I think there are better Luthor stories, but I also think that for all the tacked on stuff, I can't help but feel that there's something here, and that I'm missing something. And so I will continue to read it again and again until I either dismiss that thought or figure out what it is.
I understand the feeling that you're missing something. But I don't think you are, and I think that's the problem. It leaves you feeling like you're missing something, and you're not. It's just not there.
I think Toby said it perfectly when he said, like, it wants to commit, but it never, like, takes the full jump in. And I think it needed, more issues or more time or a better editor or someone, kind of helping him shape the way the story went. Maybe he thought it was going to be 10 issues, and they cut it down to 5. Like, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think that it needs an editor to cut out about half that material, give it a really strong spine, and then fill it back in. Yeah. Fill in whatever you took out with stronger, more focused material.
Yeah, and I think if this had been done more in a way like GCPD did, where Superman was not in it, I think then you have a much stronger. Yeah. I would have liked to see
Gotham
5
Central
issues of Gotham Central.
Yeah. But I think you're right, Chard. We don't know what happened. I mean, maybe there was some weird editorial thing that happened that we're just not privy to.
Well, it started coming out at the same time that Green Lantern Rebirth came out, and then I think it took a really long time to come out. So it makes me feel like stuff was going on behind the scenes. They changed the title of the book. It only got published as a graphic novel really recently. Yeah. So who knows what happened with this book? But it definitely feels like there should be more there, and there isn't. Right. I think that if you like villains, though, and you just want to read everything there is to do with villains, like, definitely pick this story up. But I think that there's a lot to be learned here of, come up with a good story beats first, and then add in all of the extra details, because this lacked a real drive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. So recommendations?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, mine's kind of already out there. I'll recommend Identity Crisis. I want to recommend it, A, because I do enjoy it, but B, I read this very interesting article the other day that made a lot of sense to me, which is that this was the point in modern comics where DC really started to go much darker, skew much darker with their storylines, and really start kicking the shit out of everybody. And that's not really a good thing.
People say this is the book that ruined comics.
Yeah,
So,
so I think it's interesting to get it out there.
That's an interesting way to put it.
It's like I said, I like it,
there
but
are so many comics that
totally-
ruin comics.
Yeah, which
really, like I don't feel like that one ranks that highly.
No, and what it did is it ushered in a darker tone at DC,
Yeah.
and people they
and
don't like that.
Not in the same, but I mean, in a way that you had Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, which, regardless of how you feel about Dark Knight Returns, it's like my example is always Birth of a Nation, right? Yeah. D.W. Griffith was a racist and an awful person, but you can't change the fact that Birth of a Nation is an incredibly important film in the history of film. I hate Frank Miller. I think he's a crazy asshole that buys his own press, but you can't deny the fact that Dark Knight Returns is an important book in our medium.
I totally agree. And I think the one thing that those two books have over Identity Crisis is that they were not in continuity.
No,
and
they
Identity
weren't.
Crisis
Absolutely.
was.
And the fact that at the time they were being written, people were largely walking around going, "Oh, comics, those are for my son." And you read Watchmen, it's like, yeah, that's not for your fucking kid there, buddy.
Right.
So I think they came out at a time when it was really, really needed.
Yeah.
As to where Identity Crisis, I feel, is very sensationalistic. It's like I said, I like it. I enjoy it. I own it. But
You also retcon some things that didn't need to be retconned.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This book is really, it's in a weird place for me because it is one of my favorite comics of all time. But I also, the older I get and the more comics I read, the more I find that I disagree with it about. And this is the book that got me back into DC Comics because I wasn't reading DC Comics for a really long time.
Yeah, same. I stopped buying DC Comics for a long time. Identity Crisis, specifically. I mean, Brad Meltzer's amazing. I own his novels.
I like those too.
And Identity Crisis pulled me back in.
Yeah.
Got me buying everything on the DC shelf.
It kept me there till Final Crisis. So.
I actually didn't get into DC until Infinite Crisis,
Yeah.
which is like 2 years later.
Yes. Yeah, I believe at least a
And I
year.
did read Identity Crisis once, but that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind giving it another look.
Yeah.
Like, I
think
think even if we
it's-
don't recommend it as something to enjoy, it's an important artifact of comic history.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and people are going to forget about it, I think, because, all of the old DC stuff is going to get swept under the rug here if they keep continuing to do their,
Well,
New 52 bullshit.
we'll see.
So,
I still remain unconvinced that the New 52 is going to be the permanent status quo.
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't be surprised if every 5 years they do a new reboot, but whatever. I don't
They're-
really know if I have a problem with that anymore.
Like, really, my problem with DC Comics right now isn't even the writers, because the writers are fucking sick of this bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the editorial and the corporate
for sure.
leadership who are really driving the ship into the ground.
Yeah. Well, and there's a great Paul Jenkins interview that I need to put up on the Facebook page that talks about the bullying of the talent and how he himself was put in a position like David Finch, I think, was
Yeah,
doing Dark Knight.
No, he's doing Batman.
No, but he was doing. Anyways, I'll put it up there. You guys should read it. It's a great article, and it really talks about some of the missteps that DC is making, not just in terms of the characters, but in terms of the talent, which they're bleeding.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Toby.
All right.
Toby, what do you want to know?
I brought Bike Club by Howard Chaykin, David Tishman, I think I said that right, and David Hahn. This is a Vertigo title. It came out in like 2005. The easiest way to describe it is take Sopranos, take True Blood, slap them together. It's mafia vampires in Miami. The leader of their kind of mafia family dies, and there's a power struggle as to who's going to take over the family between the son, who is a Catholic priest and a vampire, and the daughter, who's fucking crazy as shit. This goes into the category of what I call trashy vampire bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's not particularly deep, but it's a fuck ton of fun. Lots of people die. There's nudity. It's gangsters and vampires together.
I know what I'm voting for.
The art is really great. The colors are really great. It's pretty thin. It was like 6 issues initially. They did a follow-up series called, I think it was Special Vampires Unit.
Yeah, it was like a cop drama.
Which I didn't read.
That was weird.
But if you watch True Blood and you like it because it's trashy bullshit, this is that in comic book form.
Yep.
Seems good. Seems good. I love Chaykin. Chaykin is crazy, and I think he's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of vampires, my book comes from the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Nice segue. Nice segue.
Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men. Basically, it's a book I haven't read in years, but it's definitely in my favorite books. It's a reboot of X-Men after the Claremont ordeal ended, featuring Colossus, Wolverine, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Kitty Pryde, and Beast. And it just... The X-Men were in a real weird place before this came out, and this book was very well written and kind of solidified the X-Men in one of the top teams again.
Yeah, it was all about making them superheroes again.
Yeah, actually, I did not read the X-Men for a long time
before
before this because they had been in a really fucked up place. And this was one of the first really great X-Men books since, I want to say, the turn of the century. I mean, there was a long period where the X-Men were just up to bullshit and it wasn't interesting and they were fucking with the continuity really badly, and this really righted the ship.
Yeah.
It's amazingly well written. John Cassidy's art is great, even if you can't draw more than 5 different faces. And Joss Whedon does a really good job writing the X-Men. It's Joss Whedon at his best.
Joss Whedon will always be my hero for making... I love Cyclops, and I think largely he gets written as this big whiny bitch. Big whiny pile of emo, and he's not. He's been leading this team against Omega level mutants since he was a teenager. So he's a hard ass.
He does a really good job of making everyone in this book awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cyclops is awesome. Wolverine is awesome. Kitty Pryde is incredibly awesome. Go figure.
Yeah, well, and she deserves to be. Astonishing X-Men is that,
and brings a lot of character to Beast too, which I think was missing for a long time.
Absolutely.
And it also, unfortunately, was a lot of the inspiration for X3, the horrible, awful movie that was. So if you saw that and thought that was terrible garbage, you can read this instead and know what it should have been like.
Okay, no, I saw X3. And I don't remember it being anything like this.
It's the Cure, the mutant Cure,
right?
Like that's the whole premise of that movie. You forgot because the movie was bad. But
yeah,
that's what that movie was about.
I completely forgot that part of the movie.
Yeah, that's
which
what
was
that
the
movie
entire
was about.
plot.
Yeah.
Wait, do you mean that movie had more than Wolverine killing people?
Yeah.
That's all I remember.
Yeah.
Wait, was that the one where they stitched Deadpool's mouth shut and he fought Wolverine on top of the cooling tower?
No, that's
that was
Origins.
Wolverine.
God,
can we
that was
never
bad.
speak of that again?
It's my favorite Deadpool.
The one where where the merc with the mouth doesn't talk.
Yeah, where he has Baraka blades and shoots lasers out his eyes.
So this is...
and he can teleport.
All you wonderful internet trolls at home, you should take advantage, because that's how you troll somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, this is a great X-Men story. And
It is.
I did read X-Men like the whole time that they were doing all kinds of stupid, fucked
Yeah,
up,
I
awful
have
shit.
most of the Claremont run myself.
I have all of that. I have everything that I did have all the Grant Morrison run and all of the run in Uncanny that was going on at the same time. That I think it's Chuck Austin run.
Yeah,
that
Chuck Austin.
everybody says is the worst.
Is that
X-Men
the
stuff.
one where Wolverine is from like a feral race of humans that's like not fucking related to mutants?
I don't remember that.
Or maybe that was in the
could have
Wolverine
happened.
book, but there's definitely like a race of feral humans that all feral mutants are actually part of it was Chuck Austin. It was complete fucking bullshit.
Wow, I don't remember that. I mean, that very
really
well
bad.
could have been there. I read those when those were coming out when I was in like middle school and high school. I think the early 2000s. That Chuck Austin run, and then after that, I read all of the like Gold Team, Blue Team, New Age mutant stuff, and it was all like really confusing. And then when this came out, it was like a huge breath of fresh air.
Yeah, Astonishing X-Men. It righted the ship, and
yeah,
if you're not reading X-Men right now, it's really good.
yeah.
One thing to note is a few episodes ago, Chard, you actually recommended X-Men Deadly Genesis and said it was basically the starting of the stuff that led up to Avengers versus X-Men. Mm-hmm. And if you want to read that, start with Deadly Genesis. I would say start with Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, weirdly, Astonishing X-Men came out like 2 years previous to Deadly Genesis, but didn't complete until after Deadly Genesis was done.
Yeah, there were huge gaps.
They're considered to take place at the same time. So actually, when I was making my reading list of X-Men stuff, I put Astonishing X-Men like after Deadly Genesis, because there's characters in Deadly Genesis that aren't in Astonishing X-Men because they're off-world. It's like there's a really weird continuity stuff going on with X-Men at this time. So if you're trying to come up with a continuity reading order, it's really difficult because a lot of characters are missing at this point. But like Rachel Gray, who's in Deadly Genesis, isn't in Astonishing X-Men because supposedly she's off-world during the War of Kings stuff. So like that puts it in a really weird time continuity. So
that's true.
I agree with you that you can very easily start here.
And you should,
and
because it's really good,
too.
And it will create a buffer for you when you read the crap.
Yeah.
You'll think back to it, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that either one of those is a great starting place, and I definitely don't think you shouldn't read Astonishing X-Men. You should. It's fantastic.
So what did you bring, Chard?
I brought another Marvel book, but it is not a superhero book. It's an all-ages book called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which Marvel has been doing these Oz... They're doing the books, I forgot who wrote these. Baum?
Yeah, Frank L. Baum.
Frank L. Baum, yeah. They've been doing adaptations of his work, and Eric Shanower is writing. And one of my favorite artists in comics today, maybe of all time, Scotty Young, is doing all the art. I think the art is absolutely gorgeous. It's phenomenal stuff. I'm gonna pass the book around while we're talking.
I want to see this.
It's phenomenal art. It's very I think he would consider himself a cartoonist. I think I've heard him say it before in interviews, and not in a dirty way, the way that a lot of people say cartoonists. Like, his art is very exaggerated. There's very interesting lines. His colorist is always like complimenting his stuff really well because he picks his colorists really well. He used to color his own stuff, and now I just don't think he has time anymore because he's drawing so many books. But Eric Shanower is like he's a Wizard of Oz scholar, essentially, in the way that there are like Tolkien scholars now that like read the books growing up and now are going on to like continue to add to that lore. Shanower has written some of the later...
Yeah, if you don't know, there was more than one Wizard of Oz book. There were like 20 of them.
Well, no, there's been over 40.
Over 40.
He wrote 14. Frank Baum wrote 14.
Okay.
And then there have just been a continuous stream since then.
We had all of the Frank Baum ones on my bookshelf when I was a kid, and my mom read most of them to me, although I've forgotten a lot.
I've been trying to read them. I got them on the
Kindle. If you
Kindle.
only know the movie and maybe like Return to Oz... Like, there is so much more to the Wizard of Oz canon than that.
And Eric Shanower and Scotty Young have been doing several. I think they're on the 6th book now, so they're going to try to do all 14. But Eric Shanower wrote, like, some of the later books, like in the 40s, of the Wizard of Oz series. So he really knows his Oz lore well. They're really well adapted from the word. They're not adapted from the movie. It's adapted from the books. Most of the words are Frank Baum. He had to, like, change some stuff, but... I think they're great. They're a great read. They're excellent all ages books. They're really fun. I love the art. They're really fascinating. I'm a huge fan of these. I think they're a lot of fun. So definitely wanted to get that rec out there.
So what are you going to vote for, Joe?
Bite Club. Howard Chaykin has written some of my favorite things ever, and I love Astonishing X-Men, and I have a feeling that Astonishing X-Men is going to be what wins tonight. So,
see, I'm really torn between Astonishing X-Men and the Wizard of Oz because I haven't read I know the Wizard of Oz, but I haven't read the comic version. I really like Astonishing X-Men. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to vote for Oz though, because I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Cade?
Cade, what are you thinking?
I either want Identity Crisis or Bite Club. Although I want to vote for all four of them. It's been a few
Well,
weeks
you can't
since
vote for yours, so you can only vote for 3.
It's been a few weeks since I've said that, but this week I feel that like everyone has brought something that I really want to talk about.
I can tell you that when we record and then upload the episode that's going to follow this one, it's going to be like mid to late July. So True Blood is going to be on episode like, I want to say like 6 or 7. And I'm really going to want to talk about vampires. Like, I know it's bullshit, but I fucking love it.
I'm going to vote for Bite Club.
Yes.
All right, is that 2 for Bite Club?
That's
then?
2 for Bite Club
Okay.
and 1 for Oz.
All right, I'm going to vote for Identity Crisis because it's a book I really wanted to talk about. I love that book, and I'm so conflicted by it now that I would love to have, like...
Well, I do want to talk about Identity Crisis. I don't like doing 2 kind of similar books in a row, so I would definitely encourage, if not Joe, then somebody to recommend it in a future episode.
Yeah, totally.
Because I do want to talk about it.
It's just such a polarizing book, and I think something that's for sure.
No, I think like I said, I think it's important to understanding the history of comics because it was very influential.
Yeah. So Bite Club is our
Bite
next
Club.
book,
Bite Club.
and we will you'll only have to wait 2 weeks again to get us, but we're waiting like a month to record again. So vacation time. All right, we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Never to drive, remember.
Bye.
Bye.